He gave food to two giant Apache sisters. The next day, 500 warriors surrounded his ranch. He lived on a quiet ranch far from the nearest town. The land around him was wide and open, with tall grass moving in the wind and long dirt roads that seemed to go on forever. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. The air was cold at that time, and the sky slowly turned from dark blue to soft orange. He had built his ranch with his own hands. It was not a large place, but it was enough for his family and their simple needs. Life on the ranch was not easy. There were animals to feed, fences to fix, water to carry, and crops to protect. Some days were good, but other days were hard. Rain did not always come when needed. Sometimes the ground became dry and cracked. Other times, strong winds damaged parts of the farm. Still, he never gave up. He believed in hard work and honest living. He taught his children to respect nature, to help others when possible, and to stay calm during difficult times. Money was not always enough. He did not have extra luxury in his home. The house was simple, made of wood with basic furniture inside. There were no large decorations or expensive items. What he valued most was peace and safety for his family. Even though the land felt empty and quiet, he knew that different groups of people traveled through the area. Some were traders, some were travelers, and some belonged to nearby communities. He believed in treating everyone fairly, no matter who they were. One afternoon, while he was checking the fence near the edge of his property, he noticed movement in the distance. At first, he thought it was just animals, but as he looked closer, he saw two figures walking slowly along the dusty road. They were not from his land. Their clothing was different from what he usually saw. They carried themselves with strength and confidence. He could tell they were not ordinary travelers. As they came closer, he noticed that they were two women walking side by side. They were tall and strong. Their steps were steady, even though the sun was hot and the journey looked long. They did not speak loudly. They seemed serious but not aggressive. The rancher did not feel fear, but he stayed careful. Life on the frontier had taught him to observe before acting. He waited near the fence instead of approaching too quickly. When they noticed him, they stopped. There was a short moment of silence. The wind moved gently between them. The rancher raised his hand in greeting, showing he meant no harm. He spoke in a calm voice and asked if they needed help. His words were simple and respectful. He did not try to control the situation. He only wanted to understand their needs. The two women looked at each other. They were tired from travel. It was clear that they had walked many miles. The rancher could see that they had limited supplies. Without thinking too long, he made a decision. He invited them to rest near his home. He told them he could offer water and some food if they accepted it. At first, the women were quiet. They studied him carefully. In those times, people had learned to be cautious around strangers. Trust was not given easily, but the rancher did not rush them. He stood calmly and waited for their response. After a short discussion between themselves, they agreed to accept his offer. He led them toward the ranch house. Inside, his family looked surprised to see guests from afar. The rancher explained that the women were travelers in need of rest. His family quickly understood and welcomed them politely. His wife brought fresh water. His children helped prepare simple food from their supplies. It was not a large meal, but it was enough to show care. The rancher did not ask many questions. He believed that when someone is hungry, kindness should come first and questions can wait. He placed food on the table and invited them to sit. The women thanked him in their own way. Though their language and customs were different, gratitude does not need many words. A respectful look and a steady nod were enough to show appreciation. While they ate, the rancher remained nearby but did not interrupt. He wanted them to feel comfortable. The children watched with curiosity but stayed polite. The atmosphere in the home felt calm. It was a simple moment, but it carried meaning. Two travelers were given rest. A family shared what little they had. No one acted with fear or anger. After the meal, the women prepared to continue their journey. Before leaving, they spoke briefly with the rancher. Though he did not fully understand everything they said, he sensed that they respected him for his actions. They stood tall and confident, and their expressions showed seriousness. The rancher believed he had simply done what any decent person should do. He walked them back toward the road. The sun was beginning to lower in the sky, creating long shadows across the land. The women thanked him once more before continuing their path. As he watched them disappear into the distance, he felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. He did not expect reward. He did not think about recognition. He simply felt that he had acted correctly. That evening, he returned to his usual work. He repaired a broken section of fence and checked the water supply for the animals. His day ended like many others. He had no idea that this small act of kindness would soon become important. He did not imagine that the women he helped were connected to a larger group. He only remembered that they were travelers who needed food. When night came, the ranch became silent. The stars were bright in the sky. The family gathered inside their home, feeling safe. The rancher believed that tomorrow would be another normal day of work. He trusted that honesty and respect would protect him more than fear ever could. He went to sleep thinking about his responsibilities for the next morning. At that moment, everything seemed peaceful. There were no signs of danger. The land around the ranch was quiet. The wind moved gently across the fields. The rancher could not know that his decision that afternoon had already started a chain of events. He had chosen kindness without expecting anything in return. That simple choice would soon connect his life with many others in a way he never imagined. The next morning began like any other day on the ranch. The sky slowly changed from dark to light, and a soft golden glow spread across the open land. The rancher woke up early, as he always did. For a few moments he sat on the edge of his bed and listened to the quiet sounds outside. The animals were moving in their pens, the wind was gentle, and everything seemed normal. He had no reason to believe this day would be different from yesterday. He stepped outside to start his daily work. The air felt fresh and cool. As he walked toward the barn, he noticed something unusual. The ground near the outer fence looked different. Dust had been disturbed. There were many footprints close together. At first, he thought maybe a group of travelers had passed by during the night. It was not strange for people to move through the area. Still, the number of marks seemed larger than usual. He walked slowly along the fence line to take a closer look. The footprints were not from animals. They were clearly made by many people walking together. His heart began to beat a little faster. He tried to stay calm and think clearly. In those times, it was important not to jump to conclusions. He reminded himself that fear can grow quickly if you let it control your thoughts. He returned to the house and told his family about what he had seen. His wife listened carefully. She asked simple questions about the direction of the footprints and whether anything else looked unusual. The children felt curious, but also a little nervous. The rancher told them to stay inside for the time being while he checked the area further. He decided to ride his horse toward the edge of the land to observe from a distance. From the higher ground, he could see farther across the fields. As he moved forward, he noticed movement beyond the trees in the distance. It was not a small group. It appeared to be many people gathered together. They were standing in organized lines, not scattered like travelers. This made him think carefully. He did not approach too closely. Instead, he stopped at a safe distance and watched quietly. The group seemed large and steady. They were not rushing or shouting. They were simply present. The rancher felt a mix of confusion and concern. He wondered why so many people would gather near his land. As he observed, he suddenly recognized two figures among the group. It took him a moment, but then he realized they were the same two women he had helped the day before. His mind quickly connected the memory of their visit with the current situation. He felt unsure about what this meant. Had he done something wrong? Was there a misunderstanding? He decided not to act with fear. Instead, he waited calmly. He kept his horse steady and raised his hand in a peaceful gesture. After a short time, one of the women stepped forward. She walked with confidence toward him, and the large group remained behind her. The rancher remained still, showing he had no intention of causing trouble. The woman spoke in a firm but respectful tone. Although he did not understand every word clearly, he sensed that her message was important. She pointed toward the ranch and then toward the group behind her. The rancher listened carefully and tried to understand her meaning through her gestures and expressions. After a few moments, it became clearer. She was explaining something to the group about his kindness from the previous day. The rancher felt surprised. He had not expected his simple act of giving food to become known to others. He had only meant to help two travelers. He never imagined it would reach such a large gathering. While he stood there, more members of the group moved slightly closer, but they did not act in a threatening way. Their movements were controlled and organized. The rancher realized that this was not an attack. The atmosphere felt serious but not aggressive. Still, seeing so many people together near his land made his stomach tighten with worry. He thought about his family back at the house. He wondered if they were safe. Even though he did not see any signs of harm, the size of the gathering was enough to cause concern. He kept his posture calm to avoid creating tension. He knew that staying peaceful was the best way to prevent misunderstanding. The second woman then stepped forward as well. She carried herself with dignity and strength. She spoke briefly to the group, and several members nodded. It seemed they were discussing something important. The rancher remained attentive. He tried to show respect by listening carefully and not interrupting. After some time, the women turned back toward him. Their expressions were serious but not hostile. One of them placed her hand over her heart in a gesture of gratitude. Then she pointed toward him and spoke to the larger group. The rancher sensed that something meaningful was being shared about his actions. He began to feel slightly more at ease. The size of the gathering still surprised him, but the tone felt different from what he first feared. The group was not moving forward aggressively. They remained where they stood. The women seemed to be speaking on his behalf. Moments later, a few members of the group began to sit down on the ground. This sign showed that they were not preparing for sudden action. Instead, it looked like they were waiting. The rancher stayed on his horse, watching carefully. He did not move closer, but he also did not retreat. He wanted to understand the situation fully before making any decisions. The woman who had spoken earlier called out again. This time, her tone sounded more relaxed. The rancher noticed that the atmosphere had shifted. Some of the tension in the air seemed to fade. He realized that communication was happening between the sisters and their group. He slowly dismounted his horse and stood on the ground. He wanted to show that he was willing to talk if needed. He kept his hands visible and his movements slow. This was important to avoid misunderstandings. The group watched him carefully, but no one advanced. The rancher felt a strong mix of emotions. He was nervous, but he was also curious. He could not ignore the size of the gathering, yet he also sensed that something unexpected was unfolding. He remembered clearly how he had treated the sisters with respect. He had given them food without asking for payment. He had not judged them. He had simply acted with kindness. Now, standing in front of many people, he began to wonder if that simple act had greater meaning than he realized. The sisters appeared to be explaining something important about trust and fairness. The rancher listened with full attention, hoping to understand more. The morning sun rose higher in the sky, shining over the land and the people gathered nearby. The scene felt powerful and unusual. It was not a normal day on the ranch. Yet, despite the large number of individuals present, no one made a sudden move. The moment was filled with seriousness, but also with possibility. The rancher stayed calm, ready to respond respectfully to whatever would happen next. He did not know what the final outcome would be, but he understood one thing clearly. His decision to help two strangers had brought him into a situation far bigger than he ever expected. And as the gathering remained steady in the open field, the story of that day was only beginning to unfold. The rancher stood quietly in the open field, trying to understand the meaning of the large gathering. The morning sun was now higher in the sky, and its light made everything clear and bright. The group of people remained in place, not moving forward, not stepping back. There was no shouting, no sudden action, only careful watching. The rancher felt his heart beating faster, but he kept his breathing slow. He knew that staying calm was the best way to handle any serious situation. He looked toward the two sisters. They stood near the front of the group, speaking to others in a steady and respectful way. Their expressions showed seriousness, but also confidence. The rancher realized that they were not there by accident. Something important was happening, and they were leading the discussion. One of the sisters raised her hand and pointed toward the rancher. She spoke in a strong voice, and many in the group listened carefully. Although he could not understand every word, he could see that she was explaining his kindness from the day before. She described how he had welcomed them without fear, how he had shared food without asking for anything in return, and how he had treated them with respect. As she spoke, the mood of the gathering slowly began to change. Some people nodded their heads. Others looked at the rancher with thoughtful expressions. The rancher noticed that their eyes were no longer sharp with tension. Instead, they seemed curious and attentive. He felt a small sense of relief, but he still remained careful. The second sister stepped forward and joined the first. Together, they spoke for several minutes. The rancher could tell that their words carried meaning and influence. The group remained quiet while listening. It was clear that the sisters had respect within their community. Their voices were not loud, but they were powerful because people trusted them. The rancher decided to show that he was open to conversation. He slowly walked a few steps forward, keeping his movements gentle and calm. He stopped at a respectful distance and placed his hand over his heart. This was his way of showing goodwill. He then gave a small nod toward the sisters. He wanted them to know that he remembered them and that he had no bad intentions. When the sisters saw his gesture, their expressions softened. One of them smiled slightly. It was a simple smile, but it carried warmth. She turned back to the group and spoke again. This time, several members responded with quiet approval. The rancher felt that the atmosphere was becoming less tense. Still, the large number of people surrounding the area made the situation serious. The rancher understood that gatherings of this size did not happen without reason. He wondered if they had come to test his character or to confirm his intentions. In that moment, he felt thankful that he had acted honestly the day before. He believed that truth and kindness were now protecting him. One of the elders in the group stepped forward. He was an older man with a calm presence. He walked slowly toward the sisters and listened to them closely. After hearing their explanation, he turned his attention to the rancher. The elder's eyes showed wisdom and experience. He spoke a few words in a steady tone. Although the rancher did not fully understand the language, the tone felt respectful. The elder then raised his hand and pointed toward the rancher's home. He seemed to be discussing the rancher's land and his family. The rancher felt a moment of concern, thinking about the safety of his loved ones. But he stayed still and waited for clarity. The sisters spoke again, this time gesturing toward the rancher's family standing near the house. They explained something important to the elder and the group. Slowly, the rancher realized that this gathering was not meant to cause harm. Instead, it appeared to be a way of honoring him for his kindness. The elder nodded after listening carefully. Then he turned to face the larger group and spoke with authority. The people responded with quiet agreement. The rancher watched closely, trying to understand each movement and expression. He felt that a decision was being made. After several moments, the elder began to walk toward the rancher. The crowd remained in place behind him. When the elder reached a comfortable distance, he stopped and looked directly at the rancher. There was no anger in his face. Instead, there was seriousness and respect. The elder extended his hand in greeting. The rancher hesitated only for a brief second, then stepped forward and accepted the gesture. Their handshake was firm but peaceful. This simple action felt important. It showed that communication was possible, even between people who came from different backgrounds. The elder spoke again, and the sisters translated his message. They explained that their community valued generosity and fairness. When someone showed kindness without expecting reward, it was considered a strong and honorable action. The rancher's decision to help them had reached far beyond what he imagined. The rancher felt humbled. He had not given food to earn respect. He had only wanted to help two tired travelers. Now he understood that his actions had traveled back to their community and had been shared with others. The gathering of people was not to confront him, but to recognize his behavior. As the conversation continued, the mood of the group became more relaxed. Some members stepped closer, but only in a friendly manner. The sisters walked back and forth between the elder and the rancher, making sure everyone understood each other. The rancher answered their questions honestly. He explained that he believed in treating all people with fairness, regardless of where they came from. The sun was now bright overhead, and the field felt warm and open. The large gathering no longer felt like a threat. Instead, it felt like a meeting. The rancher's family slowly came out of the house, staying close together. They watched carefully, but when they saw calm expressions on everyone's faces, they began to feel more comfortable. The elder asked if the rancher would allow the group to sit and share a short discussion on his land. The rancher agreed. He felt that as long as everyone remained peaceful, there was no reason to refuse. The group moved to a nearby open area and sat in small groups. The sisters stayed near the rancher. For the first time since seeing the large crowd, the rancher felt that he could breathe more easily. Conversations began among the people. Some talked quietly, others listened. The sisters continued to express gratitude for his help. They explained again how important his kindness had been during their journey. The rancher realized that trust had grown from a simple act. He had not expected recognition, but he had received respect. The situation that began with uncertainty had slowly turned into understanding. The presence of hundreds of people no longer felt frightening. Instead, it felt like a reminder that actions have consequences, both small and large. As the day continued, the rancher remained attentive but calm. He knew that the outcome was still developing, but the tension that had filled the morning was now fading. The gathering had become a moment of connection rather than conflict. And as conversations carried on across the field, it became clear that this was not the end of the story, but only another important step in a journey shaped by one simple act of kindness. The meeting in the open field continued with a calmer feeling than before. What had started as a tense morning slowly turned into a respectful gathering. The rancher remained seated near his family while the elders and the sisters spoke with the others. The sound of many voices was now soft and controlled. There was no rush, no anger, only discussion. The rancher listened carefully whenever the sisters walked over to explain something. They told him that their community believed in balance. When someone showed kindness, it was important to recognize it openly. They explained that trust was built through actions, not words. Because he had shared food without fear or payment, they wanted their people to see his character for themselves. The rancher felt both surprised and honored. He had never thought that such a small decision would bring so many people together. He remembered the moment clearly. He had seen two tired travelers and offered help. At that time, it felt natural. Now he understood that his simple act had traveled far beyond his ranch. As the discussion continued, the elder asked the sisters to explain how the rancher had treated them. They described the warm water, the clean food, and the polite conversation. They also shared how he had not asked for anything in return. The group listened closely. Some people looked at the rancher with curiosity. Others nodded slowly, as if confirming that his behavior matched their values. After hearing everything, the elder turned to the rancher again. Through the sisters' translation, he expressed gratitude. He explained that their community respected honesty and fairness. He said that in difficult times, kindness was rare, and when it appeared, it should be appreciated. The rancher felt a deep sense of relief. The tension he had felt earlier was now gone. The sisters then stepped forward once more. They invited the rancher to speak to the group. At first, he felt nervous. Standing in front of so many people was not something he did every day. But he reminded himself to stay calm. He walked a few steps forward so everyone could see him clearly. He spoke in a steady voice, even though many of them did not understand his language. The sisters translated his words. He explained that he believed all people deserve respect. He said that his ranch was open to peaceful travelers who needed help. He told them that he did not judge visitors by appearance or background. He shared that his family lived by simple values: work hard, treat others fairly, and avoid unnecessary conflict. As the sisters translated his message, several members of the group exchanged thoughtful looks. The elder listened carefully and then spoke again. This time, his tone seemed more relaxed. He explained that their visit was not to cause fear, but to build understanding. He said that misunderstandings often grow when people do not communicate. Today, communication had prevented that from happening. The rancher felt grateful for those words. He realized that if he had reacted with fear the day before, this situation might have turned out differently. Instead, he had chosen kindness. That decision now seemed very important. The sisters smiled again, showing that they were pleased with how the meeting was going. After some time, the elder made a suggestion. He said that it would be good for both sides to remember this moment. He believed that peaceful meetings like this could create stronger relationships in the future. The sisters agreed and encouraged the rancher to see their community as neighbors rather than strangers. The rancher nodded in agreement. He told them that he was willing to continue living peacefully with anyone in the area. He said that if someone needed help and approached with respect, he would respond in the same way. The sisters translated his response, and the group appeared satisfied. Gradually, the large gathering began to feel less formal. People started talking in smaller groups. Some sat on the grass and rested. Others walked around calmly, observing the ranch. The rancher's children watched with growing confidence. They could see that the mood had changed from worry to understanding. One of the sisters walked with the rancher near the edge of the field. She pointed to the land and explained that their community valued shared respect for nature. The rancher agreed. He explained how he cared for his animals and crops with attention and patience. They exchanged ideas about living close to the land in a responsible way. This conversation felt friendly and open. There was no pressure, only exchange. The rancher realized that this meeting had given him a chance to learn as well. He was hearing new perspectives that he had never considered before. Even though their backgrounds were different, their values were similar in many ways. As the afternoon moved forward, the elder announced that the group would not stay much longer. Their purpose had been fulfilled. They had seen the rancher's honesty and confirmed the sister's message. The rancher felt thankful that the situation had ended peacefully. Before preparing to leave, the elder approached the rancher one more time. Through the sisters, he said that the rancher would always be remembered for his kindness. He explained that in their community, stories of good actions were shared widely. The rancher's decision to help would not be forgotten. The sisters thanked him again, this time with a deeper sense of respect. They explained that because of him, trust had grown between their people and his household. They believed this moment could help prevent future misunderstandings. The rancher felt proud, not because of attention, but because he had stayed true to his values. Slowly, the group began to organize their departure. The rancher and his family watched as the people gathered their belongings and prepared to leave the area. The field, which had been full of hundreds of people, gradually became quieter. The sound of movement faded into the distance. When the last members started walking away, the sisters turned back once more. They waved with appreciation before joining the group. The rancher stood still and watched until they were no longer visible. Only dust in the air remained, settling back onto the ground. The ranch felt peaceful again. The rancher's family gathered around him. They felt relief and gratitude. They had experienced a situation that could have been frightening, yet it ended with respect and understanding. The rancher explained to his children that kindness can travel further than we expect. That evening, the ranch was calm under the setting sun. The rancher walked around the property, thinking about the day's events. He understood now that his simple decision had created a powerful outcome. He had not tried to impress anyone. He had only chosen to do what felt right. As the sky turned orange and then dark blue, he felt stronger inside. He realized that courage does not always mean facing danger. Sometimes, it means choosing kindness when you do not know what will happen next. The large gathering had tested his patience, but it also confirmed his character. The rancher returned to his home feeling thankful. The family sat together, sharing a quiet meal and discussing the events of the day. They agreed that honesty and respect had protected them. The ranch was once again peaceful, but the memory of the meeting would remain with them. The story of that day would spread through conversations in the future. It would be remembered not for fear, but for understanding. And as the night settled over the rancher knew that the choice he made the day before had changed more than just a single moment. It had built a bridge of trust that could last for years to come. The ranch felt quiet again after the large gathering left. The dust slowly settled back onto the ground, and the wide open field looked normal, as if nothing unusual had happened. But for the rancher and his family, everything felt different inside. They had experienced a day that would stay in their memory for a long time. That evening, the rancher sat outside his home and looked at the horizon. The sun was going down, and the sky was full of soft colors. He thought about the events of the past 2 days. First, he had met 2 tired travelers and offered them food. Then a large group had gathered near his land. Now peace had returned. It all felt like a powerful lesson. His wife came outside and sat beside him. She told him she had felt nervous at first, but she was proud of how calmly he had handled everything. She said that his patience had protected their family. The rancher smiled and replied that he only did what felt right. He reminded her that kindness should never depend on fear or reward. The children joined them and asked many questions. They wanted to understand why so many people had come and why they left peacefully. The rancher explained in simple words that sometimes actions speak louder than words. He told them that when people see honesty, they respond with respect. He encouraged them to always choose fairness in their own lives. The next morning, life slowly returned to normal. The animals needed care, the fences needed checking, and the land needed attention. The rancher continued his work as usual. However, he noticed something important. The area around the ranch felt calmer. Even when he traveled outside the property, he sensed that people who had heard about the event treated him with more respect. A few days later, while he was repairing a section of fence, he saw one of the sisters again in the distance. She was not alone this time, but she approached peacefully with a small group. When they reached the edge of the ranch, she greeted him warmly. There was no tension, only friendliness. Through gestures and simple communication, she explained that their community had discussed the meeting in detail. The elder had shared the story with others, and it had spread among nearby groups. People appreciated that the rancher had acted with honesty. Because of this, they wanted to maintain peaceful relations with him and his family. The rancher felt grateful for this news. He understood that trust had been built step by step. It was not created by one moment alone, but by consistent respect. The sisters thanked him again and promised that their community would remember his kindness. Before leaving, they exchanged respectful nods and returned to their path. After they left, the rancher stood quietly for a few moments. He realized how important communication had been. If he had reacted with fear during the gathering, the outcome could have been very different. Instead, he stayed calm and open. That choice had changed everything. In the following weeks, life on the ranch continued peacefully. The family worked together as always. But now there was a stronger sense of confidence. The rancher felt more connected to the surrounding area. He believed that understanding between people was possible, even when they came from different backgrounds. Sometimes, travelers passed by the ranch. When they did, the rancher greeted them kindly. He offered water if needed and spoke politely. Word spread that his ranch was a place of fairness. More people began to feel comfortable passing through the area without worry. The rancher also reflected on the lesson he had learned. He realized that kindness does not mean weakness. In fact, it can be a sign of strength. It takes courage to help others when you are unsure of the result. It takes patience to remain calm when facing something unexpected. These qualities had guided him through the situation. One evening, his children asked him if he was afraid when the large group surrounded the ranch. He thought carefully before answering. He told them that he did feel concern, but he did not let fear control his actions. He explained that fear can be natural, but decisions should come from wisdom, not panic. He told them that every person has the power to influence the world around them. Even a small act, like sharing food, can grow into something much bigger. The children listened carefully and remembered his words. As time passed, the story of the ranch became known in nearby communities. People spoke about how a simple gesture had led to understanding between groups. It became an example of how respect can prevent conflict. The rancher did not seek attention, but the story traveled because it carried meaning. The sisters also continued to speak about the rancher's honesty. They shared the experience with younger members of their community. They explained that cooperation is stronger than misunderstanding. They believed that peaceful communication should always come before judgment. Months later, the ranch was still thriving. The family worked together and the land remained healthy. The rancher often looked back at that important day. He understood that the outcome was not just about him. It was about the choice to treat others with dignity. One afternoon, while sitting under a tree near his house, he thought about how close the situation had come to being different. If he had refused to help the sisters, the story would not exist. If he had responded with anger, trust would not have grown. Instead, he chose kindness, and that choice created connection. The experience changed him in a positive way. He became even more patient and understanding. He listened more carefully to others. He believed that every encounter deserves fairness. His family followed his example, and their home became known as a welcoming place. Years later, when he told the story to visitors, he always ended it with the same message. He said that no matter how large a challenge may seem, calm thinking and respectful behavior can lead to peace. He reminded others that cooperation begins with small actions. The ranch continued to stand strong in the wide open land. The memory of that gathering remained part of its history. It was not remembered as a moment of danger, but as a turning point. It showed that trust can grow in unexpected ways. In the end, the rancher learned that one decision can shape many futures. His simple act of sharing food brought together different people and built understanding. The large group that once surrounded his land became a symbol of respect instead of fear.